8 from a pretty powerful morning. Good morning, good. So what do we have? Today, let's look at the options for returning to Ukraine. After all, that's exactly what Zelensky and his associates are asking for. Before we start, join in, subscribe, and let's get started. If you haven't subscribed yet, that's pretty strange. You really should subscribe. So what are they telling us there? Look, we have this one wounded soldier here, apparently injured during the war, who says that draft dodgers have no right to exist.
The duty of a leader comes before the rights of a leader. To be continued, continued.
A little digression.
Получается, обязанности становятся впереди прав. I don't know why he decided that, how he decided it, or what he based it on. Well, yes, he has no legs. I see that. Yes, we all see it clearly. So he clearly fought in the war, although, for example, there's this guy Naim, the brother of Mustafa Naim. I don't remember his name. He was running through some grove, came across a Ukrainian mine and lost his eye. In the end, he became very respected. A person, and now he's basically a sought-after figure in every volunteer organization, so to speak. And he recently bought a Mercedes for $180,000. So everything is great. I don't deny, of course, that people are fighting, people are losing their health. But when, well, let's put it this way, the military, for example, I have acquaintances who were injured during the fighting. They never invite anyone to war. But here this person immediately says, and here, well, of course, with swearing, that's a given. I mean, our culture is very high.
Degradation.
People of high culture appear on the telemarathon every day and swear, and well, it's all clear here. The social ladder that lifted you straight from, roughly speaking, the entrance hallway where you drank beer to some major general or some other position. Well, anyway, whatever.
Who aggressively promote their supposed right not to serve. I have absolutely the same attitude towards such people.
And I just don't understand why these people think they can be an example for others. I mean, okay, you fought in the war, but then you suddenly start swearing and insulting a huge number of people. I mean, that's millions in total. There's this guy Yuga, the former prosecutor general of Ukraine, who claims that there are 3 million draft dodgers in Ukraine. So this person in the video immediately insults about 3 million people, it turns out, and thinks that they will instantly go, oh, this is a role model. That's it. That's exactly what we needed. That's it. We run right away, losing our shoes. We run straight to the military enlistment office, to the TCC, and say, guys, give us an electronic point. Give us a point for jewelry at the E point of fragility. And those who are abroad say, we'll talk about being abroad later.
In no way am I defending the illegal actions of certain representatives of the territorial centers, the TCC.
Thank you. There are only a few. You see, the TCC manhunters, only a few act outside the rules. All the rest are good guys. Subtitles by Dima Torzok.
I'm not ready to go and fight for Zelensky.
I've never been a fan of his work or his political activity. What motivated me were the yellow and blue flags at the cemeteries.
Yellow and blue? First of all, it's yellow and blue. Well, that's just knowledge of the Ukrainian language. Okay, I'm honestly tired of nitpicking here. And secondly, well, if a person was motivated by yellow and blue flags at the cemetery, by the way, Tisvin Tartsi means cemetery, then it turns out he's even more motivated. Even more dead, even more of those flags, or honestly, I just don't understand the logic. There's no logic, as the Ukrainians say. But alright, then there's also this picture from one of the training centers. So here they're telling us that alright, you need to urgently rush off to join the army, lose your shoes, hair flying back if you have any. Well, as you can see, I don't have much left to lose. And then suddenly, a representative from that very Ukrainian Armed Forces training camp looks at some hole in the ground. And a lot of questions come up.
Why is there a pit about 5 or 6 meters deep, hidden in both layers, so that no one can see it?
5 or 6 meters, just imagine. This is not a well, you see, it's absolutely not a well.
Look, you see how it's neatly trampled there. Go ahead and write comments.
They were probably looking for water. I guess the Territorial Recruitment Center representatives will immediately write that they were digging here to provide their wards with clean well water. We dug a pit. Well, that's clearly machine digging. It wasn't done with shovels. And we're actually providing healthy, clean living water, basically spring water. But the problem is there's no water. Maybe that's true. On the other hand, if you didn't find water, well, you need to fill in the pit. And if you didn't fill it in and there are still some traces of, I don't know, people or not, but still at the bottom, in general, a lot of questions arise. And at the same time, another character appears. This one especially, I tell you, a true Ukrainian, look, such light eyes. Honestly, among all my acquaintances, those who had such light eyes, well, I don't know, maybe that's just how it happened for me. They were all very, let's say, addicted to alcoholic beverages. Well, maybe it's genetics and maybe he's some kind of super Hyperborean, but still, let's listen to what this Hyperborean in a sideways cap has to say.
My friends, go back home.
Go back home, yes, with your cap sideways, and that's it, you'll come back. He's some kind of writer, by the way. I've never read any works by this person, and I don't think I ever will. But nevertheless, his appearance says a lot.
Better to be in Kiev under rockets than in Poland under the poles.
Better to be in Kiev under rockets than in Poland under the poles. Well, you understand. Do you respect me or not? What is this? That probably stayed off camera. To say it's disgusting, well, I can't even find the right word to describe how I feel. Yeah.
That you come back here and let the Punjabis go to the polls. And that will be a big lesson for them about how to treat people who support your economy.
Damn it, economically, brother, they work. A big lesson, there are polls, and here we are. Do you respect me or not? Look at how much vodka I have. Sorry for this bit of acting, but honestly, these people just trigger a physical aversion in me. So what? We still have more. This is just the first part. This is what I wanted to show, that some people say, come back home. On the other hand, some people say, and then from the pit, from a third side. And draft dodgers in general are bad people, as that character who was injured during the fighting says. And they're also telling us about reparations. Now they're speaking in Russian, saying that once reparations start coming to Ukraine, it'll be 20 billion a year. Of course, not rubles, but dollars.
Back in 2004, it was definitely determined that the total amount of reparations, the direct damage inflicted by Russia on Ukraine as of 2024, is $750 billion.
That's just the direct damage. There are also indirect damages and lost profits, since those drones could still be sold. And if you don't sell those drones in quantities of 150,000 or 150 million or however much your imagination allows, then you can only look at your lost profit and sometimes launch satellites like Serhiy Prytula does. Add Serhiy Prytula.
If you add the indirect damages as well, the figure will rise even more, up to about $1 trillion. But that's for 2024, and we're nearly at the end of 2026.
We've already calculated $1 trillion. Now look, was it a meteorite or an asteroid like the Tunguska meteorite, and before that Yucatan? And there were a few more. There was also the planet Phaethon. It's gone, it was destroyed, and the Anunnaki did it. In short, it turns out to be $34.5 quadrillion or galactic pesos. Well, interpret it however you want. We've counted a lot here. Well, now let's see what Zelensky is saying over there. In short, if you don't want to end up in a 6-meter deep pit, then head back home, because it's better to sit in a pit than to be under the poles. That's how I'll wrap up this first part of our sketch, you could say. But anyway, let's see what we have next. Zelensky suddenly announced that the US would supply Ukraine with Patriot missiles every month. The translation, of course, is incorrect. Missiles for the Patriot. I don't know which Patriots they're planning to supply missiles for, but I mean, it's those very launchers. Ukraine has an agreement with the US for monthly deliveries of interceptor missiles for the Patriot systems, but there aren't enough of these missiles to repel all Russian attacks. Zelensky announced this at a press conference with Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić in Belgrade. At first I saw Vučić, then some policemen in blue uniforms, and only after that did I see Zelensky. He really stands out. The President of the Republic of Serbia. Well, that's quite a turn of events. Zelensky, the president, states that this year there are fewer missiles in the world that Ukraine needs to counter Russian ballistic threats compared to 2025. Production volumes are also limited. I still haven't understood who is supposed to advocate for increasing the supply of these missiles to Ukraine. Maybe Vucic, or maybe some kind of wizard on a blue helicopter? Well, it's hard to understand, but apparently someone has to do it, because otherwise why talk about it at all? But suddenly a window of opportunity opens, and Zelensky announces that there are no Patriots, but there are in fact ballistic missiles. And they're already flying by the millions. Basically, Zelensky says, fly, we'll bomb while flying. He stated that the first use of a Ukrainian ballistic missile could happen as early as this fall. I really like the weak verb could, because it could or it couldn't. Or maybe it can't, but it could. And here, well, it didn't happen in the fall. He'll say something like, I mentioned it could happen, but it didn't work out, just bad luck. That happens quite often. At the same time, according to him, it's too early to talk about the widespread use of this missile. So, apparently it might fly or it might not. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. That's what he said on Saturday, August 8th. And he also said that we need to believe. But again, it becomes unclear here. What exactly are we supposed to believe in? I mean, there are different kinds of belief. For example, there's belief like, well, you know, like, yeah. All right, let's not go too deep into that, but he did say that he can't comment on mass deployment, because there are things that don't depend on Ukraine. It's like with Russian ballistics. There are components from other countries. It's the same with our ballistics. There are few, but some components come from other countries. That's a hard to translate set of words. Basically, it's clear that the missile is 99.9% made up of foreign components. And Ukraine is not able to produce chips. And Russia can't produce those chips either. So both countries get their chips from China. I'm telling you this as an IT specialist. You can argue in the comments, say that you're the author, or claim that we have no analogs, that we produce chips here. Here we produce 1 nanometer processors. And in general, we've already reached the 5D level, so you're mistaken. But I'm somewhat familiar with this subject. I don't need to look it up on Google. You don't need to check with ChatGPT to realize that all of this smells a bit, well, not the way you'd want it to smell. I believe, says Zelensky, that the use will be successful and the result will be achieved. But when we talk about mass use, we have to understand that it requires the supply of a large number of such elements from other countries. Again, that's why everything depends on readiness, on contracts, on payment, on many different factors. In any case, none of us has designers closer to ballistics than Firepoint does. Well, I don't know why Seryoja Prytula wasn't mentioned. He was launching satellites there, and now suddenly there's a satellite. We haven't heard anything about him for a long time. I don't know why. Probably he's working as hard as 10 people at once on the hot shift and not giving up our proud Varangian in orbit. And maybe he's doing something, or maybe he's not. Well, again, there could be many factors affecting the work of this proud Varangian. But Seryoja Prytula regularly appears and says that he won't say anything more about his satellite. For about 2 years now, he probably gets annoyed when people ask him about it. Then Zelensky made a few more interesting statements, saying that Putin is thinking about closing the borders and carrying out a mass mobilization. Zelensky stated that the head of the Kremlin is thinking about carrying out a mass mobilization without officially announcing it. We should, says Zelensky, have a general understanding of what's happening with the Russians. Here it's his pronunciation. He says Ruskimi. But I don't know, a person who speaks Russian, I'm talking about Zelensky, and doesn't speak Ukrainian very well, for him, the country, it's like he's either trying to hurt or something else. Well, he keeps saying with the Russians all the time. To understand that they will go to any lengths, there will be hundreds, thousands of cyber attacks, there will be missile pressure, there will be intimidation, and so on. They don't change. Why, asks Zelensky, can't Putin find victory in this war yet? Unfortunately, we have to acknowledge and understand what's happening. Putin is thinking about mobilization. He's thinking about how to deceive his people, to carry out a mass mobilization without officially announcing it, to sign some shady contracts, to block the borders, and so on. We see this. We already see many corresponding steps. Well, that's the statement we have. So what? Well, to be honest, I don't even know what. Well, let's take another look at Belgorod. I mean, here there are already some real, not just discussions or reasoning by powerful leaders, but some actions. Explosions and a fire have been reported in Belgorod, Russia. Local residents reported a major drone attack in the city center with air defense shooting down UAVs over residential buildings. And let's take a look at what's happening here. That Telegram channel is showing us what was happening a few hours ago. Then there's also this. The results once again of the drone attack on Belgorod. And various photographs. That is, here once again the consequences are shown. Fortunately, this is not a nuclear mushroom cloud. Well, and here they are talking about the fact that there was a strike that caused damage. So that's the situation with Belgorod. Well, now let's take a look at what's happening. Yes, they're also telling us that fires have started. Air defense personnel were shooting down UAVs over houses. That's why they were falling and houses were exploding. Well, not the houses themselves, but the UAVs over the houses. And that's how these fires, destruction, and everything else happened. I mean, it's exactly the same as what's happening in Ukraine with exactly the same reasoning. I find it extremely... Alright, let's not discuss this any further. I'll leave this video as it is, and in the next one I'll cover all these topics directly. Well, let's see what our powerful leaders have to say. Who should we start with? Well, there's... Who? We have this one character.
We are completely satisfied with our work, but unfortunately, our work did not produce any results.
That happens. Yes, unfortunately, of course, when you work as hard as you can and don't get any results. Ah, but we have a character like this. Lapton, the judge's son, who has lived his whole life with, what do you call it, a silver spoon in a certain place. He suddenly fought there for 3.5 days and now heroically buys heavy motorcycles, travels all over the world and talks about draft dodgers.
By the way, in Ukraine, we don't have the same level as the totalitarian Soviet regime.
Ah, the Soviet regime? Well, yes, of course. Well,
currently, martial law has limited our freedom of speech, but take Ihor Lapin and Borislav Bereza, for example. We're far from that situation now.
This Bereza, whose real last name is Bliaker, is actually in Austria, and Bereza is under close scrutiny by Ukrainian law enforcement, let's put it that way. So he's under investigation and he has a criminal case, basically for draft evasion. And then Laptin suddenly tells us that someone abroad can talk and say things. Laptin himself still seems to be in Ukraine, but just like Amelian, that's the former Minister of Transport, who also used to go on there about democracy too. And suddenly he also turned out to be a violator of martial law, I mean a draft dodger, and quickly ran away to the UK, where he talks about patriotism. In short, out of all these middle-aged patriots, only Laptin is left, who is telling us something, and...
Other citizens have the opportunity to express their position, so freedom of speech in Ukraine is still a work in progress.
Back then, it wasn't a work in progress at all. There was real freedom of speech. For example, during Yanukovych's times, you could criticize him however you wanted. People did all sorts of things. The same members of the Kvartal 95, everyone laughed at their performances and they even showed the bicycle there. They told all sorts of things there, write in the comments what they didn't talk about. Now we apparently have freedom of speech all of a sudden, which has never happened before. And here we go again. Well, Laptin, that's just how Laptin is. He always tells all this stuff. And suddenly again there was, and apparently still is, a rally to reinstate Fedorov as Minister of Defense. But the organizers of this rally have already been arrested. They've already been sent to go through the draft board, the military medical board, the military commission, and soon apparently they'll be seen at the front. Well, people like Laptin and Dobry continue to feed us nonsense about how democracy is developing in Ukraine. I have several acquaintances who tried to develop democracy in Ukraine, including broadcasting from Ukraine about Ukraine. But Laptin apparently means exactly that, or maybe not. Well, that's how things are. In general, things aren't going very well for us, and let's hope that in the near or foreseeable future, they will finally get better. Goodbye, everyone.
This is an endless war. Every other generation of Ukrainians fights Russians. The war can only end if Russia is destroyed and split into many small eastern states. And when the Kremlin gathers them together again, if we don't completely destroy the Kremlin, physically destroy everything, which we probably won't be able to do, then we will have peace. Forget it. That's why we need to prepare not for 1 year, 2 or 3, but for the fact that we must be in a permanent state of combat readiness.